Lakhnawi, he writes, الحق أن السنية كما تثبت بالمواظبة كذلك تثبت بالترغيب البالغ وإظهار الاهتمام بفعل. Sunnah, Lakhnawi says, I agree, it can be established through Muwazabah. But again, what is the principle over here? How do we establish Sunniyyah? Keep this in mind. This is important. Why are we saying Muwazabah helps us understand that something is Sunnah? What's our reasoning behind this? The reason we're saying Muwazabah helps us understand that something is Sunnah is because this shows us the level of talab. The talab for this action was very important. How so? Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always did it. Had it been of a lower level, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would have left it more often. But the fact that he always did this action shows that the talab for this action was of a very high level. And for that reason, we say Sunniyyah is established through Muwazabah. So it's not Muwazabah in and of itself. This is mentioned by Taqi Subki as well. He writes that المواظبة إنما كانت دالة على السنية لأنها تدل على عظم قدر ذلك الشيء عند الشرع وتركه يدل على الانحطاط. Right, Muwazabah in and of itself is not necessarily what indicates Sunniyyah. It indicates Sunniyyah because of the fact that the Prophet always did that. What does it tell you? That action is very important in the Shari'ah. If you was to leave it, that would tell you that action is not as important as the former in the eyes of the Shari'ah. And based on this, we can understand that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if he does Muwazabah upon an action, yes, 100%, this is a sign of Sunniyyah. But like we mentioned, it's not the only sign of Sunniyyah. كذلك تثبت بالترغيب المبالغ. Likewise, if the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, perhaps he did not continuously do an action, perhaps, but he continuously encouraged others to do it. Like adhan. If the Prophet ﷺ gave adhan once, or he hardly ever gave adhan for the congregation in general, yet other people give adhan, does that mean adhan is no longer sunnah? Adhan becomes mustahabb now? No, because Nabi ﷺ continuously commanded again and again and again to give adhan. And adhan was given in his blessed presence again and again. And he encouraged this. And he mentioned rewards upon rewards for giving adhan. So what do we understand from this? Just because Muwazabah is not there, doesn't necessarily mean that that action in and of itself is not encouraged in the Shari'ah. It's possible that the level of talab is very high as well. But Muwazabah was not there due to a secondary reason. I'll give you one more example over here. Tarawih Salah. Is Tarawih Salah in and of itself Sunnah or not? The answer is yes. So the question becomes, why is it Sunnah if there's no Muwazabah? Because if you look at the ahadith, perhaps the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam led Tarawih thrice or 4 times. If that's the case, is there Muwazabah? The answer is no. But the reason the Prophet left that action or Muwazabah upon that action was not لِيَدُلَّ عَلَى الْانْحِطَاطِ, to show that it's of a lower level than other actions. No, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged them again and again. مَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. He encouraged them to pray in the nights of Ramadan. But the reason the Prophet left that action was that he feared if he was to continue doing it, it would become fard upon the believers, and then they would not be able to maintain it. So we understand from this that the reason he left the action is not to show it's of a lower level, but rather the reason he left that action, إِنَّمَا تَرَكَهُ خَشْيَةَ أَن يُفْتَرَضَ. The only reason he left that action was out of fear that it might become fard. فَهَذَا يَكُونُ فِي مَعْنَى مَا دَاوَمَ عَلَيْهِ. This is in the same power as something which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always did. Rather, someone can even argue that the fact that there was the fear that it might become fard shows that it's of a higher level than something which the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always did. This is mentioned by some of the fuqaha of the Shafi'iyah. Naam. Number 3, we also understand from this that sometimes Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will do something punctually in every instance of his life. Now we told you what's the benefit. Why do we say Muwazabah indicates Sunniyyah? Muwazabah indicates Sunniyyah on account of the fact that Muwazabah shows the level and the importance of that action in the Shari'ah. What if the Prophet ﷺ always acted upon an action? Okay, the types of clothes he wore ﷺ, the type of food Nabi ﷺ liked, etc., etc. But this was not so as to show the importance of this action in the Shari'ah. Rather, the purpose behind this was just that it was a habitual action of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was just something which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a human being was inclined towards. Will we say this results in this action being sunnah mu'akkadah? Of course, this action is matlub shar'an. Why is it matlub shar'an? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it. So we also want to do this action, right? To imitate Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to bring his blessed practices into our life. But will we say just because there's Muwazabah over here that this is at the level of any other sunnah mu'akkadah? Not necessarily. This is why the Hanafi fuqaha, they make this differentiation between sunanul huda and sunanul zawaid. What are sunanul huda? These are sunan which the Prophet ﷺ did punctually that the Shari'ah requires. And he did them on account of being a shari', of explaining the Shari'ah to people. Like the sunnah you pray before Fajr Salah or post Dhuhr Salah. On the other hand, you have other sunan. It's the method of the Nabi ﷺ, something which the Prophet ﷺ did muwazabah upon. He did punctually. But not necessarily because the Shari'ah required it, rather because it was something which he intrinsically liked. He naturally liked. Okay, now this level is also of importance. Like I mentioned before, this is also matlub. Don't leave this. And don't look down upon this. And don't blame others for doing this. This is still matlub in the Shari'ah. But obviously it's not on the same level of a sunnah mu'akkadah. Alright, and that's why the Hanafi fuqaha make this differentiation between sunan al-huda and sunan az-zawaid. Right, we say it's in the level of istihbab. If a person does it with the right intention, it's in the level of al-istihbab, as mentioned by al-Lakhnawi and others.